Today I'm interviewing Bruhmanegod, who's a huge inspiration for a lot of people in the underground rap scene. He was also #1 on my 2024 recap, so getting the chance to do this was pretty cool. Also, check out my Instagram if that interests you. Enjoy. You've performed live a ton throughout your career. How do you start? Do you have any rituals? Do you ever get nervous?
So the thing about the whole like nervousness aspect is typically like throughout the day, right, of a show when I have to perform, whether it's like a big or small crowd, I'm always like on 10, like just ready to go. And then right before I hit the stage is when I finally get that little like tinge of nervousness, just because it's like you really got to commit in that moment, you got to run out there and you really got to do your shit and go crazy. In terms of rituals, before I would just, do basic shit to get the blood flowing, like a couple jumping jacks, have like a beer or two. But on this last tour that I went on with Darky, we would he put me onto this like 5 minute vocal warm up on Spotify. So before every set, we would just go into a room and we would just do this thing where we follow this pattern like ma 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 ma, and then it like goes up in scales and shit. That's pretty much it, though. I mean, basically just whatever it takes to get the blood flowing and the voice warmed up. Nothing crazy, nothing special.
Yeah, you're a good performer. I saw a video of you when I was researching like questions of you just standing on a speaker out in like some convention like 6 months ago, and you were just performing like Desert Coffin.
Yeah, that was Far Out Festival. It's something that my dad throws in San Francisco. It's like a neighborhood like block party street festival type deal. I think we're going to be doing those yearly. So if anybody is in that area, you're bound to see me at every single one of those, more likely than not. So
You have a ton of people you've basically come up with throughout your career. How has your collaborations and friends influenced you as an artist?
I think that my collaborations have been 100% of why I sound the way I do, honestly. Like just the community that I've built and like people that I've gotten close with throughout time. Like for example, like anyone who knows my music knows that I work with like James all the time, like James Corsica. That's my guy. And like a big part of what influenced my sound and like the kind of sound that I always knew I wanted to go for from the jump was finding his music. So like everyone that I'm around is a huge influence to me. And that's a big part of why I work with them so much, because it keeps my brain hot. You know what I mean?
I've checked out a few of James Gorsuch's stuff, and I can definitely hear like the inspiration like a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's great.
He's given me beats that like no one else could, you know what I mean? Yeah. Other than that, like, I could go for days, go down the list of all the people that I fuck with, but everyone who knows me knows. And if you don't know, then all you got to do is look.
Yeah. You've had your orange beanie as a part of your brand, but since around 2022, you've stopped featuring it as much. Is it just a shift away from that old days?
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of wanted to change up my look, to be honest. Like I was getting bored I had super long hair when I was like wearing that beanie all the time, and it was just getting hard to maintain. I just kind of got bored of that being the whole like shtick and like people like associating me with like a fucking like stinky ass hat that I just like would wear all the time. I just didn't like it after a while, so I stopped wearing it. That's pretty much all there is to that. But people still will like draw me with the orange beanie and shit, or people like still see me that way, which is fine. It is what it is. It was iconic for its time. I'm
Yeah,
aware.
100%. You have a wide range of sound. How do you go about finding those new sounds, and like how do you know what's right?
That is an interesting question. I feel like everything that I do, at least at this point with my solo shit, is whatever I'm like listening to at the moment, or just like all the shit that I'm like interested in at the moment I always try to put a little bit of like that influence into it. Like I have an overarching like sound that I like to go for, but I like to like mix it up and like add new flavors in there and just try shit out. Like there's so much shit that I listen to that like you wouldn't expect people in this sort of like side of music to even want to try to include. Like I listen to a ton of like old like new metal and shit, and like I listen to a lot of like soul and like funk and shit like that, and like just like groovy shit all the time. So I'm trying to I guess right now like make my shit a little more timeless.
Yeah, when I was researching my first video on you, I was watching an interview and you mentioned your favorite album was like Lugal. I started listening to that.
Oh, Lugo Kien by Rings of Saturn. Oh shit, I don't even know like what interview that it is in.
I don't know where I got that
Damn.
from, but I just picked that up. I started listening to it. I was like, wow, I did not expect a rapper to start like to listen to this.
I mean, I wanted to do like that kind of shit before I started rapping, but I just didn't really like know anyone who was down to, you know, take that route. So I just kind of started making music by myself, and it was the easiest thing to do was rap. So
Is that a direction you want to go like later on?
with this project in particular, like with shit that I drop under this name, I don't really like have any specific direction I want to go. I just want to make shit that's like really cool and like unique and good, you know? Like there's other ideas that I have for other projects that I might want to start up and other like artist names and whatnot that I can, take it in a little bit more of like one direction. But with how I've done everything up until this point with the Bruhmanegod shit, it's like at this point I might as well just do whatever. That's all I can. That's all I can do at this point. Like you go through my discography and you're like, how the fuck did he go from this to this? You know what I mean? Like people always like say shit like that about me.
Yeah, when you first started, you had a very actually, how would you describe your sound when you first started?
I mean, I guess it depends on like where you start because when I first started, it was like 2014. So like, there's none of that music is out. Like, you can't even find that shit anywhere. So, but in terms of what you're probably talking about like 2017 era
Yeah, yeah.
kind of shit. Yeah, in terms of that, I mean, I was just super inspired by like Anti-World and like Cyber and dudes like that and Eric North and just a lot of like the old underground, like old SoundCloud shit, like Raider Clan and like I was just trying to give my own spin on that kind of shit, to be honest. Just learning how to like make music the way that those guys did. Cause I was still like, a fucking I barely knew what I was doing. You know what I mean? Like it was all like trial and error at that point, and I was just trying to make shit that was as good as the shit that I like to listen to. It's really hard to like describe the sound, but it's definitely a product of its era.
Yeah. A big theme I don't see a lot of people talk about directly is this community's tendency to have a negative and kind of vulgar lyrics while containing a positive message. What are your thoughts on this aspect and what made you incorporate this into your music?
Well, I think that a lot of that comes from just like pain, you know what I mean? Like a lot of like you could tell when someone's music is very genuine and they're putting their heart and soul into it. And a lot of the music that I've made, especially over the last couple of years, with a lot of shit that I've been like going through and have gone through, it's all a product of that. And I feel like when you like apply that sort of vulgar language to the music, it's to really drive the point home of like how you feel. You know what I mean? Like I feel like Marilyn Manson kind of put it best when I think it was like Bill O'Reilly or somebody was like trying to grill him about swearing, and then he was like, if I'm not like using profanity, then it's not real. You know what I mean? Like that's basically how he put it. So I agree with that.
Yeah. A lot of artists think of music as therapy, and you've mentioned that on your songs before. How has your relationship with making art evolved as you've gone on?
I think that like it's ebbed and flowed a lot because there have been times where I felt like I was just making music just to like make it because I felt like I had to. And then there have been times where it's like there's nothing else that I want to do except make music, and it definitely ebbs and flows. And I feel like as I've matured, a lot of things that otherwise would have held me back from wanting to create, they're no longer there in my mind. Like I used to sit down and like start wanting to make something, and then I would be like, well, like if this won't have this result, or like people might not like this or whatever, like shit like that, and it would prevent me from like finishing things. But now it's like if I start some shit and I'm fucking with it, I'm just gonna like see it through, even if I don't like it at the end. I'm gonna see it through and finish.
Yeah. In your recent album, you talked about being a part of Pointless Beef. After being in this space for a long time, how do you deal with that negativity?
At this point, I don't know. I guess it depends on the shit you're talking. You know what I mean? Like if you're really like coming at me crazy or coming at my friends crazy, like that's one thing, and I don't like getting involved in shit like that. And whenever I feel like it's necessary for me to get involved, I feel like the best way to do shit nowadays is just kill with kindness, because everybody wants to be like the big tough guy, but like there's nothing that can like stop a big tough guy dead in their tracks easier than you just like being like, yeah, bro, like hope you're okay. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
if there were more, because it's like if there were more of that in the world, then people wouldn't be so fucking angry and hate each other all the time.
100%, dude. And I appreciate you noticing like me trying to take this in a more positive direction.
Yeah, yeah. That's like so like the thing is like I see a lot of people making videos about the underground and shit like that. I'm not gonna name names. I feel like people who watch your channel will probably know like they can think of a couple people that I might be referring to, but they'll just make like gossip videos about stupid like drama that has nothing to do with them, or like, oh, this artist is canceled, blah blah blah, or like this guy's like this guy's that. Like that shit's stupid, bro. It's not, because at that point it's not about the music anymore. It should always be about the music, in my opinion.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those since starting, and yeah. As someone who is in a relatively niche music scene, what is your perspective towards the mainstream? And is there a world where you would ever want to be in the mainstream?
Hmm. I guess my perspective on the mainstream, it may not align with like what a lot of other underground artists think about the mainstream. The way I see it, like all music is just music, right? And like every artist has their own idea of what the right thing to do for their music is. So like I can't look at everyone who would be considered mainstream and be like, oh, that person's a sellout, or like that person's this, that person's that, especially when like it's really hard with how the industry is now to even like draw that line, you know what I mean? Like where, like at what point like do you become mainstream, or at what point like are you no longer underground? Like the line is so blurred, it's hard to even say. But no, I respect a lot of mainstream music. Like I'm not gonna sit here and hate on mainstream. I fuck with like Future and shit, you know what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna like try to shit on it. And what was the second part of the question?
Is there a world where you would want to be mainstream?
I guess it depends. I wouldn't mind the money, but I have no intention of like really like signing or doing any of that kind of stuff, because I've seen what can be done independently, and it far supersedes anything that I've seen anyone I know who's signed like achieve. You know what I mean? Like you can do more staying independent than you can signing at a certain point. And a lot of people I know who are signed have like done nothing but really complain about it. And I don't blame them, because it fucking sucks to be in that position. But yeah, yeah, I don't know. I guess it all just depends. It depends on where you draw that line.
You've mentioned Cult International as a brand you've kept basically since you started music. You've never really talked about if there's a meaning behind that brand. A theme of your songs and lyrics is that you don't want to be a role model. Is Cult a way of satirizing artists being put on a pedestal?
Honestly, kind of, yeah. I've never really thought of it that way. Like, but I think when I really put it into perspective and like line the I guess brand up with how I like approach the topics in my music and shit, it definitely can be rationally seen as a satirization of shit, because everything is a cult. Like every single like artist's persona or like artist brand, it becomes a cult of personality. Like once you have a fan base, then you have a cult of personality. And I guess the reason why I call it cult is because like I want to have that level of self-awareness, and also like kind of like stand against the deceptiveness of other artists' cults of personality. You know what I mean? Like other artists will like allow that shit to exist and like kind of try to, for lack of a better term, like brainwash the people who enjoy their music. Whereas I would rather just like be hella upfront and like straight up about my shit with everyone who supports me. So I guess that makes sense. And in terms of the meaning, I mean, if you look at the logo, I've always seen the logo as kind of like a tree. Like if you think about it, like it's like it just, because it's a branch, it has the branches, and like there's like one thing in the middle that is like all the thing that we all share as artists, and then it just branches off in like all directions, northeast, southwest.
That's interesting because I've always wondered what that means. You've mentioned before that songs you least expect to blow up sometimes do. Do those spikes in numbers influence your motivation or what music to make?
Not particularly. I mean, I haven't really had like a big song, like a song like get super big in a long time, because like I just have so many like different like baskets I'm putting my eggs in, you know what I mean? So it's gotten to a point for me where I'm not like super focused on like dropping music under this name all the time, and just doing it when I really feel like it. There was definitely a point in time where I felt a little bit more motivated by like numbers and whatnot, but it's not really something that influences any of the shit I make under this name.
Is that something that comes with time, or you just like, is that just part of your personality? You're just not You don't care about the numbers.
I mean, it's not that I don't care. Like anybody who tells you they don't care about the numbers is lying. You know what I mean? Like especially if you're like a rapper, like they're lying to you, bro. It's not that I don't care. It's just that like I know that there's other ways that I can get what I need from this shit. You know what I mean? And like luckily, like I've been able to do things in the last like half a year to a year where I have been making it work a lot better. I won't get too into like what those things are, but yeah, I'm not worried about getting like a huge Bruhmanegod song anytime soon, basically.
Yeah. In a lot of your songs, you talk about your gratefulness for your life circumstances, which contrasts a lot with a lot of rappers who talk about getting money. What made you go against the grain like this?
I just feel like money's cool and shit, and like I like make enough to be comfortable in my life. But I feel like more than anything, like the things that I value are like my friends and like my family and like my health and shit like that. Like I put that shit before any of like the flexing or any of that in music. I'm just grateful that I like came up the way I did and that I had like people in my family who supported me and that I was able to make a bunch of cool friends who are hella good at what they do. I think about that before I think about like any achievement or accolade that I got.
Yeah. Oh, this one, in a few of your songs, you say like dopamine trap shit. I've always wondered what that is.
Yeah, so that was just something I like randomly. I don't remember what was the first song I said that in. I think it was like 2022 rap. Yeah, so like that was kind of like a double entendre because when I made that song, I was like, I feel like it was right at the turn of like the era where like brain rot music became like a huge thing. And obviously it's like a spin on the real trap shit tag. But like the way I see it, like it could even be considered to be a genre. Like that's what I would name that genre, dopamine trap. Like all the like super like ADHD fucking shit that has been like popping off like crazy recently. And then it's a double entendre because like a dopamine trap is just that. Like when you're like doom scrolling or like doing some shit like that, like you're in a dopamine trap. Or when you're like, going out and like getting fucked up all the time, like that's a dopamine trap. Like,
TikTok, but for music.
yeah, exactly.
How do you come up with your ideas for songs and albums?
A lot of it just kind of comes down to like conceptualizing over time. Every idea that I ever get for any song that I put out, it just comes to me in the most like random, like epiphany of a way. Like I'll just be chilling somewhere. I'll be like with my homies or I'll be like out like doing some shit or like I'll be like on a hike or I could be doing literally anything in the day and like some shit will just pop in my head where I'm like, I need to write that down. You know what I mean? So that's usually how that goes. Very spur of the moment.
What does the cover art for Come Together mean?
Are you talking about like the text on it?
Just like the white symbol.
Oh, no, 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 no. No, I know what you mean. I know, like the pyramid. For me, that was just like I view that like pyramid drawing. That's like the house for all the people who like, are along with me on my journey. You know what I mean? Like I was drawing that pyramid on people's like shirts and stuff when I was on Spider Gang too, and I was like signing merch and all that shit. But yeah, I just kept drawing that pyramid with the cult logo inside of it, and like I view that as just being like the one like place where everyone who like believes in what I'm doing can like congregate. You know what I mean? Like if that was a real place, like everybody who fucks with me would like be there.
That's a cool way
That's,
of describing it. 2 years ago, in 2023, all your songs were shaded red. Do you have a like meaning behind that era?
I would love to say that there was a meaning behind it, but honestly, like I just really fuck with the color red. Like that's I just thought it looked really cool and it really like popped on the screen and I like the consistency. I like looking at all of them like lined up together and shit. Like I don't know, it's probably just like an autism thing to be honest, but
Yeah, because I was honestly thinking like, is it some version of like the blue the blue thing?
yeah, maybe you never know. Maybe I'll do some blue shit this year.
In Come Together and the album after that, you have a hashtag. What do each of these stand for?
So the one in Come Together, and this might come as a surprise to like a lot of people who have been following me for a while. The SB2, it just stands for Storage Box 2. So you know how I had that first album, like Beanie's Storage Box? So Come Together was basically just like a bunch of songs that like I just didn't know what to do with them. So I just fucking compiled them all into one big thing. And I called it Storage Box 2, but I didn't want it to be as on the nose, so I gave it like its own thing.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense.
And then RYR on Motion, like before RYR. RYR is something that I've been like slowly like creeping on and over the past like 2 years. It's an idea that I had for a project, and it's still coming along, but I'm like just letting it become what I actually want it to be. I'm like slowly taking my time with it, and it's going to be a project that comes out eventually.
So it's like a pre-album to that album in the future?
Basically, yeah, in essence.
What was the meaning behind the way you did last year's cover art with the like overlay thing?
Honestly, like I was just trying to find like cool images that applied to the things that I was talking about in those songs, and it was just like just a good way to visualize whatever I was, on in that song. Nothing more than that, really. It's not super complicated.
What in your life, if anything, inspired your albums of this past year? Because you dropped 3, right?
Yeah, so I mean, I guess if we're talking about 2024, I think more than anything, it's just like I've just grown a lot as a person in ways that like only people who like really know me would notice and understand. So like, I had Holy War, and there was like a lot of shit going on around the time that me and Wendigo made that shit. So that was just like a current event piece. And then Motion, it was just like kind of an image of like where I was at the time and who I was around and like what I was doing and how I was like feeling about music and shit at the time, I guess. And then I Love You Endlessly was more of just like a window into my brain, a window into the mind of like who I've become up until this point. That's how I see those.
Is I Love You Endlessly like directed at a single person?
No, it's just directed at everyone that I know. Anyone like if you know me, then you read that shit and you listen to the songs, like you'll know who you are. You know what I mean? Like that's how I see that.
That's cool. You have a yearly rap song. What made you start that tradition, and was it created to represent like your yearly view on the rap scene?
Yeah, pretty much. It was just kind of my way of like satirizing whatever like the current meta of rap was each year and shit. I didn't do one last year, or like, yeah, I guess last year now. I've been like really like thinking about it, and it took a lot of thought for me to like decide that I'm not really super interested in continuing that because I feel like the way that I go about satirizing and talking about that shit requires me to be very like angsty and like cynical, and I just don't really feel that way. Like I didn't like think enough about like the current like state of rap last year to really like give a shit to like talk about it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm just kind of like trying to move forward with other stuff. But I mean, it was a fun thing, and I do have a song that's coming out soon that I guess serves as 2024 rap, but it's not going to be called that. It's just a song about like how the pressure that other people will put on an artist to do some shit is something that artists need to let go of.
Cool. Excited for that. I know you've been putting beats up for sale. Has there been anybody who's bought a beat from you that's like made something you really like?
Throughout the years, yes. Honestly, like I've had a lot of people buy the more recent beats that I've been putting out, but nobody's like fucking dropping anything. So I haven't like heard anything yet. Like I've gotten a lot of like sales on BeatStars. Like they'll buy it, but they haven't, released anything, or at least I haven't gotten tagged in anything. Maybe I'll do my own research on that and see if anybody's released anything produced by me recently and get back to you on that. But yeah, nothing recent.
What is your favorite genre to make? I guess subgenre because it's rap.
Interesting. I don't know. I've been dabbling a lot in like alternative rock and like new metal kind of stuff. I want to find a way to mix that in more of like a R&B like kind of funk direction as well. That's been something that I've been plotting on recently. I don't know. I like it all, man. I like making like the fucking like Memphis shit. That shit's really fun to make. I like making like breakcore shit. I like making just like straight up like melodic trap. I don't know. I like making everything. I just like making shit. I like making shit that sounds good. That's my favorite genre of music.
What's your favorite song that you made?
My favorite song that I've made ever,
Yeah.
like in the history of time.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus Christ. It's definitely one that's not out. I could say that much. That's all I'll say about that.
I've heard a lot of artists say that it's usually their most recent stuff, which I guess makes sense.
In terms of shit that is out, like right now, I think probably my favorite might be Pequeñas Cosas off of my last album, or Locusts with James. I really like that song too.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions left. What's coming next for you on your journey as an artist?
A lot of good things. I've been having a lot of really like solid ideas that I know I can flesh out that I'm very excited about pursuing. So in terms of that, just like yeah, that I want to do more like community building stuff in my city and in the surrounding areas. That kind of good stuff.
Cool. Do you have any advice for anybody that wants to be an artist?
I suppose my advice would be Your only option is to rid yourself of whatever like self-doubt you're dealing with in pursuit of what makes you happy. Like if you know that this shit makes you happy, don't hold yourself back from doing what you want to do. Even if it sucks. Like even if what you want to do like really sucks. Like the only way to make it not suck is to just keep doing it. So just don't get in the way of yourself. The only person in your way is you. I'll say that.
That's some good advice. Well, is there anything else you want to like say or promote before this is over?
Yeah. Yeah. I want to promote everybody who's watching this. Keep supporting this dude, Slip. He's
Thank
really
you.
holding this shit down for the underground, man. He's doing the right thing.
Appreciate that.
This is a guy who really like appreciates music and cares enough to even research it. So these kinds of things are important, and it's what's going to keep this alive for us. It's what's going to keep us all getting what we need out of this shit. So keep supporting this dude, man.
Thank you,
That's all I'll
dude.
say. Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you so much for coming on.
Yeah, for sure.